Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting of April 3rd, 2016. And could I please have Glenn Bowman from the Church of Christ come forward for the invocation?
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for today. We thank you for the seasons and change of weather. We know that we don't always want to be very hot or cold, but since we experience those things and we experience difficulties in life, we thank you for the times the weather is good. We thank you for the rain, for the sun. We thank you for leaders here that are striving to do your will, and we pray that you'll continue to bless them with wisdom and every other blessing in their area, especially as they put you in this community first. We pray that you'll help us as a community to band together and to encourage others to be able to live up to their potential. We pray that you'll help the police and fire and ambulance and everyone that's working here, Lord, that it'll all work together for good. We pray that you'll continue to bless this meeting and it'll go incredibly well for your will and glory. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting of April 3rd, 2019. And Chief, would you please lead us in the flag salute?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Faria? Here. Johnson Santos? Here. Jones? Present. Lewis? Villalta?
We do have a quorum. Item 4, consideration of approval of agenda. Do I have a motion? Mr. Freya.
Move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Mrs. Santos.
Second.
Motion by Faria, second by Santos to approve the agenda as submitted. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? None carrying. Public forum. Members of the public may address the City Council members on any item of interest that is within the jurisdiction of the City Council, which includes agenda and non-agenda items. No action will be taken on non-agenda items, and speakers are limited to a 5-minute presentation. Detailed guidelines are posted on the council chamber informational table. When you approach the podium, please state your name and city of residence. If you have a cell phone, please turn them off or place them on vibrate. Is there anyone who wishes to speak at the public forum? Why did I know you were going to speak?
I wasn't going to be first.
I have something to do with this paper in front of it.
Okay.
That was a dead giveaway. Rhonda Lowe, Los Banos. And first of all, I have to say I'm excited. I am now with UC Merced Small Business Development Center, which is an exciting thing. I think you're going to see some pretty cool things coming out of our new alliance with UC Merced, because it's our Merced and Mariposa offices that are now connected with UC Merced. So, but that's not what I'm here to talk about tonight. I'm here to let you know that we are planning, and you have in front of you the flyer for our second annual Business Expo and Job Fair that UC Merced SBDC and the City of Los Banos partner on. It is actually going really, really well. We're up to 24 participants so far, and so it's been really exciting. It's going to be April 24th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon at the Community Center. And as I said, it's sponsored by UC Merced SBDC and the City of Los Banos. And it really is designed to help our businesses that are already here to support each other, to get to know each other. And last year, our first year was just amazing. And we're seeing people that are still doing business with each other out of all of that time. So I think that's really good. This year, we added the job fair. And we've got some major employers coming. Morningstar will be there. Ingomar is going to be there. The school district will be there. The city will be there. And the hospital is going to be there. And so I think that's going to be a really good thing to bring people in and let them know about jobs that are available. And so I hope that you will take these flyers and talk to your constituents in your district and anybody that you see and let them know about this. And thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak at the public forum? Not seeing or hearing anyone, I will now close the public forum, bring it back to council level. Before we go on, I want to welcome the Boy Scouts that are here tonight. Thank you for coming, and their leaders. Okay, let's go on to consideration of approval of consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and we voted on in one motion unless removed by the consent agenda by a city council member. And tonight we have Mrs. Souza.
Register our
number 215346 through 215572 in the amount of $1,156,846.74. Minutes for the March 20th, 2019 City Council meeting. City Council Resolution number 6065, approving and adopting final track map number 2015-01, South Point at Regency Park. City Council Resolution number 6066, accepting public improvements for Mission Village South Phase 3A. City Council Resolution number 6067, approving and adopting final track map number 2001-02, Mission Village South Phase 3B, and accompanying subdivision improvement agreement. City Council Resolution number 6068, amending the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget by increasing appropriations and expenditures for traffic impact fees for transportation planner services in the amount of $40,000. City Council Resolution number 6069, approving adopting policies for the administration and procurement of architectural and engineering services for state and federal funded transportation projects. And the recommendation is to approve all items as submitted.
Do I have any city council member who'd like to remove an item for discussion? If not, do I have a motion? Mrs. Santos,
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
do I have a second? Mr. Freya?
I will second that motion.
Motion by Santos, Johnson Santos, second by Faria to approve the consent agenda as stated. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? None carried. And let the record reflect that at 7:07, Mrs. Lewis, 7:03? It says 7:07.
It's 7 now, but she's been here a while.
Huh? Oh, she has? I didn't see her come in. Okay, all right. So let the record reflect as corrected to 7:03 when Mrs. Lewis arrived. Okay, let's go on to item 7, public hearing. If you challenge a proposed action described herein in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described herein or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the public hearing. Item 7A, public hearing, to receive public comment and consideration of an ordinance to establish the regulations and processing of accessory dwelling units. And item 7A1, ordinance number 1170, amending and restating Article 30, Chapter 3, Title 9 of the Los Banos Municipal Code relating to accessory dwelling units. And we're going to go to Director Elms.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. There's a PowerPoint presentation with this.
Okay.
item.
All right, let me count here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. There we go.
All right, great. Okay, so just this item is a second reading from March 20th, where it was first presented. Just a little bit of background. Accessory dwelling units are also known as second units, secondary living units, and mother-in-law units, as well as granny flats. They're small self-contained living units that have a kitchen, bedrooms, and a bathroom. And they're located within the single-family residential unit. They can be an addition, attached, or detached to a single-family residence. And only one accessory dwelling unit per our proposed ordinance would be allowed per parcel. And it would provide additional housing within existing residential neighborhoods. I'm just going to go through this pretty briefly. But I do want to highlight that on March 20th, at the last city council meeting, there was discussion regarding occupancy limits for residential dwelling units. So city staff committed back on March 20th to research that item and bring it back to the city council. And so based on our analysis, the city's ability to regulate the number of individuals living within a single residence is largely preempted by both the state and federal laws. So there's state and federal laws that essentially regulate the city from being able to limit the number of individuals in any single residence. The city may only deviate from occupancy guidelines if it can establish specific findings of local, climatic, geological, or topographical conditions unique to the community. Within our research, we found within the Uniform Housing Code that sets the minimum size for a dwelling, and that is state law. And it says that at least one room measuring at least 120 square feet is allowed. So you have to have at least one room measuring at least 120 square feet for it to be a legal residential dwelling unit.
Wait a minute.
All other habitable rooms, excluding kitchen, must be at least 70 square feet.
Okay, Mrs. Lewis, did you have a question?
Yeah, Stacy, could you go back to the previous page, please? And explain a little bit more, bullet number 3.
Sure. So what the state, so the ability to regulate the occupants is, so we have to have certain findings, and our findings have to be unique to our community. So unique in that no other community has our issue. So it could be climatic, geological, or topographical conditions, but they have to be unique for us to make those findings. Just to say that we have, it's an income issue. We have we have a low income household, low median income households, and that's our reason why we want to regulate how many people can live in a dwelling unit. That would not be a finding that would be suitable.
Okay,
And our city attorney, I know, has done the research and can probably chime in as well.
I'm more interested in finding out maybe some examples of what the climatic, geological, and topographical examples might be that would be unique to a community.
Well, none of them are going to apply to occupancy levels. To back up a little bit, California has adopted the Uniform Building Code, and we adopt it every other year. And it sets forth all of the guidelines for the building code, one of those being the number of occupants per residence. And local jurisdictions only allowed to deviate from the from the building code, the Uniform Building Code, based on these 4 findings. So if, for instance, you're in a topographical area of canyons and mountains and things like that, you might have conditions unique to you to vary from the housing and the building code. Wouldn't apply probably to the what we're talking about today in terms of occupancy, but it might apply in terms of the building code, the type of buildings that can be built in that specific area. Geological conditions, they're basically physical conditions that would give you the ability to vary from the Uniform Housing Code. None of them really apply to occupancy levels. So we have varied from our building code based on things like fire issues in the past. So there are local conditions that you can vary, but they have to be unique to what part of the code you're changing. So we did significant research, and there have been ordinances in the past, local ordinances that have tried to limit occupancy levels, limit them stricter than the Uniform Building Code, and they've all been struck down by the courts. So I think further on in Stacy's report, she's going to tell you there are other tools within which you can deal with those types of things.
Yes.
The formula that's in the Uniform Building Code is kind of a ridiculous formula, because I think when we ran the formula, a typical 1,500 square foot house, according to the Uniform Building Code, could house upwards of 20 human beings. Mm-hmm. So the formula is of no help in terms of limiting the number of people that can occupy a residence. And we have very few tools ordinance-wise to say 5 people can live in a two-bedroom house, for instance. So that's what we found out.
Stacy, at the proper time, can you address extreme heat in this community and packing people in a room?
Sure, we
Okay.
can talk about what the building code says about air conditioning, and I can have our building official chime in
So I
on
will
that.
just tell you, this is a dead end. If the council is looking towards trying to pick a number and put it to a square footage or number of bedrooms, that ordinance is not going to pass legal muster. I'm just,
Well, I wasn't trying to find anything to deny this request for the ordinance. I just wanted further explanation because that's pretty general. And so I needed some examples as to what these conditions would be. You know, climatic, I don't know if they're talking about snow or excessive heat or
They
or
could
whatever
be.
the conditions could
They-
be.
they could
But
be.
I just needed to have someone
yes.
give me some examples.
So
and
that's a good
explain that.
example. So if you're in a climate that's extreme cold, there may be a reason that you can justify changing your building code to deal with that.
But with these accessory units, they're not required to put air conditioning in them if it's detached from the home, are they?
My understanding is no.
Yeah, that's what I thought we said at the last meeting.
So if they're not able to have air conditioning, is there a finding we can make to make it more habitable for someone?
We would need to make that amendment to our building code to require that for all residential units, not just an accessory dwelling unit.
I don't think it would be supportable. I'm just telling you.
So it would have to be for every residence in Las Vegas that was constructed, they'd have to have air conditioning? Is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes.
And, okay. I mean, future or current, yeah, it's a good question.
So it would be for future. We would make an amendment, and then any building permits that would be issued from that amendment forward then would have to abide by that requirement. But as our city attorney has stated, it most likely would not meet the findings to be able to make that amendment.
So I think what our issue is we just don't want a lot of overcrowding. And the fact that these are gonna, one of the units, whether it's the primary or the accessory dwelling unit, is gonna be owner occupied. A lot of owners don't want a lot of people around them. I mean, it's just, I wouldn't, and I'm sure everybody up here and everybody in the audience would probably say the same. So they would probably regulate how many people are going in there. Plus, if it does get out of control and the owner doesn't care, we always have our fire chief that if they do an inspection, they can, odds are if it's overcrowded, you're gonna find some sort of other safety issue
Yes.
that will be able to address that issue.
So that's typically what you use to deal with that are nuisance types of violations, not just a clean cut, you can only have 3 people in this house. So it's typically, there are sanitary issues, there's health issues with that number of people living in a small residence. There's going to be violations where it can be dealt with. We thought the questions that were coming to us at the last meeting dealt with, can we fashion a number in terms of the size of the house, in terms of the number of occupants? I think the answer clearly is no. So you have other tools that the chief talked about last time that he's actually using currently for overcrowded houses currently in the city of Los Banos.
So just for my clarity's sake, I just want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly. If the a unit is detached from the home, a separate unit, can we or can we not require air conditioning?
Cannot.
Currently, we cannot.
Okay, so that was, yeah, that just seems kind of cruel, you know, here in the valley, as hot as it gets, and seeming to fall under the climatic issue where, you know, if you're going to have a rental unit for someone, that you can't have them comfortable. That just doesn't make sense to me.
But for all clarification purposes, if someone were just to build a regular single-family residential dwelling unit, they're not required to provide air conditioning, period.
Here in the valley.
Yes, here in Las Banas.
So I guess what you're saying is that can we change, just for the council's edification, can we change, do we have the power to change the ordinance? And not that I'm saying we do this, the power to change the ordinance to require all dwellings in the future to have air conditioning?
We would have to make an amendment to our building code.
Can that be done? Just so everyone hears the same thing, and then if we want to do that, we do it at a later date.
I don't think you can make the findings. Those are health and safety findings. They're not comfort findings. And it's the building code. It's the uniform building code that every jurisdiction in the state of California follows unless they have some unique, something going on unique to them that would give them a way to vary from that.
I think hot, 10 degrees is kind of hot sometimes. So, yeah. So are we saying then that cannot happen? We cannot make that finding if the council so chooses at a later date? Or will it be struck down, or be honest with us, tell us what's going on.
Based on our legal counsel, our city attorney is saying it's not advisable.
Okay. Okay. Well, in your spare time, which is very little, I'd like a little more research done on that too, to see if that's a possibility, because I could just see a sweat box where people packed in, and it kind of bothers me.
Sure, the fire chief and I, who's also the building official, will look into that and provide an answer in a future date.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. It's acceptable for me right now.
okay.
Mr. Jones, Mrs. Lewis, anything right now?
No, we're good.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So we went over the Uniform Housing Code, which has a formula, as the city attorney stated. And so if it's 120 square feet, it can have one room that measures at least 120 square feet. All other habitable rooms, excluding the kitchen, must be at least 70 square feet. And then 2 people can occupy a minimum size dwelling. And then for each additional occupant, the minimum size must increase by 50 square feet. But as our city attorney said, we do have tools that we use within the city of Los Banos, specifically code enforcement can initiate an enforcement action on many of the secondary conditions that result from overcrowding and illegal construction. So this could be fire code violations, building code violations, abating nuisances, such as inoperative vehicles, property maintenance, and trash accumulations. We also see electricity and various other things being pulled illegally in units that are overcrowded. And so these are issues that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, and that not only our building official deals with code enforcement, but also the building department does as well. So I won't go over, unless needed, the accessory dwelling unit law. This is California's law. I went over that pretty thoroughly last presentation. Unless there's a question, I can go through that again. But essentially, our proposed ordinance is incorporating the state's law, and we are regulating what the state has said we have jurisdiction to regulate. So we're proposing only one accessory dwelling unit or junior accessory dwelling unit can be located on any residentially zoned property. The owner has to occupy a principal residence, either the primary unit or the accessory dwelling unit. The accessory dwelling unit cannot be sold separately, and it shall not be rented or leased for less than 30 consecutive days. It would be deed restricted, and this would need to be completed and recorded prior to pulling a building permit. The minimum parcel size is not required, but all residential zoning districts are required. The accessory dwelling unit is required to follow the residential zoning district's regulations regarding setbacks, coverage, and floor area ratio. The minimum living area of an attached accessory dwelling unit shall be 150 square feet, and if it's detached, it's 400 square feet. The attached accessory dwelling unit shall not exceed 50% of the existing dwelling unit or 1,200 square feet, whichever is less. The accessory dwelling unit shall comply with applicable building, health, and fire codes. It shall comply with applicable zoning regulations. As previously stated, those are setbacks, height, lot coverage. And the accessory dwelling unit shall be served by the same driveway access to the street as the primary unit.
So no street parking.
No, it has to have its own, at one parking stall, at least, off-street parking.
But wait a minute, let me make sure I'm understanding. So they have an accessory unit, and they have 4 cars in the accessory unit. So the other 3 can park on the street?
Yes, they only have to provide for one off-street parking, and that's state law. The local jurisdiction cannot require more.
Okay,
And there's certain criteria that if they are near a transit center, there's certain criteria that if they meet that criteria, they do not have to provide off-street parking at all.
So we have some neighborhoods that are very congested and say they qualify for an ADU. Then how are we going to provide parking? They'll still be able to park on the street, and we have a congested neighborhood already?
Most likely, in all realisticness, they probably will not be able to have an accessory dwelling unit. Those lots are already built to their maximum envelope. They wouldn't meet the setback requirements to even place an accessory dwelling unit, nor would they be able to achieve that one parking space. As it is, that single-family dwelling unit has to provide 2 parking spaces, 2 off-street parking spaces. So for instance, say that the only achievable way would be for them to convert a garage into an accessory dwelling unit. They would still have to provide 1 off-street parking, and most of those units, such narrow lots that there isn't enough room to widen the driveway first off or provide another off-street parking. So realistically, it's really not practical.
Mrs. Lewis?
Yes, so in this new ordinance, you can turn a bedroom within a resident to an accessory unit, and it has to have a small kitchen, but that person can use the bathroom facilities
Yes,
within the house.
Yes.
So with that in mind, is there a parking space that has to be provided for that?
No, if it's within the single-family residential dwelling unit, no parking is required. Okay.
Mr. Jones?
Stacy, would we be able to restrict parking on the street for a time frame, say one time frame out of the week, say for street cleaning? At least that way, that might help people motivate them to clean out the garages so they start parking inside if they know at least once a week that all cars have to be off the street in that neighborhood. And it might only be for a half day or something.
That would require us to set a policy and ordinance. We'd have to set a law to
We
be
can do
able to
that.
do that. Some jurisdictions do that, but that would be something staff would have to analyze and bring back, and probably need to discuss that with the
And we
city.
can designate that just for certain neighborhoods, not for all, right? We don't have to do a blanket policy for the whole city, right?
It would most likely need to be, though, treated fairly. If the city were to do it, we couldn't just pick and choose which neighborhoods, everyone. If it's correlated with and it's connected to street sweeping, then most likely we are gonna have to treat everyone the same.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Jones?
That's it, thank you.
Okay. So if attached to the primary dwelling unit, both the accessory dwelling unit and the primary dwelling unit must be served by either a common entrance or separate entrance to the accessory dwelling unit located on the side or the rear, and no exterior stairway to the second floor or primary dwelling unit from the front of the primary dwelling unit. So essentially what that's saying is it has to be able to share the same entrance. It can have a separate entrance that can be located on the rear or on the side of the primary dwelling unit. And no exterior staircases can be on the front of the primary dwelling unit. Also, the accessory dwelling unit may not have more than 2 bedrooms. So 2 bedrooms is its maximum. Accessory dwelling units shall be similar or compatible in character to the primary dwelling unit. So they need to be compatible in terms of material, composition. So if it's a stucco siding, then the accessory dwelling unit has to be similar color and composition of materials. It needs to be located on permanent foundation. A manufactured home may be used as an accessory dwelling unit provided it meets the standards.
So
And
no tough sheds.
No, that would
Okay.
not meet our standard. An accessory dwelling unit is not required to be equipped with fire sprinklers unless fire sprinkler installation is required for the primary dwelling unit. And that would be for units built after 2016. In addition to the required off-street parking spaces, is focused on that parking question. For the primary dwelling unit, one off-street parking space is required for the accessory dwelling unit. It does not have to be covered, so it can be covered or uncovered. It may be provided as tandem parking on a driveway that otherwise complies with setbacks and paving requirements in accordance with the Los Banos Municipal Code. And the accessory dwelling unit may utilize alley access if that is available. If the accessory dwelling unit is a part of an existing single-family residence or accessory structure, no additional parking is required. So it's answering Councilmember Lewis's question. And no parking is required for a junior accessory dwelling unit. A detached accessory dwelling unit shall not exceed 1 story and the height of 15 feet unless the accessory dwelling unit is constructed above a garage. And really the only case that would work would be with a detached garage. This also allows for a junior accessory dwelling unit, which we went into thoroughly on March 20th. It can not be more than 500 square feet. Cooking facilities, it needs to provide cooking facilities, including a sink, and it's not required to have a private bathroom. So it's essentially an efficient unit, an efficient kitchen. We went over this slide. Essentially, if you can answer yes to questions 1, 2, 3, that property would be eligible for an accessory dwelling unit. And this slide came from the Department of Housing and Community Development of the state of California. The permitting process would require a zoning clearance certificate prior to the issuance of a building permit. The accessory dwelling unit law is very clear that accessory dwelling units are not to be discretionary permits that go before the Planning Commission. It's to be done ministerially by staff. It can only be issued with findings that the plan for the accessory dwelling unit complies with all requirements of the zoning regulations. So that's what staff is going to be checking. And staff will also be conditioning that dwelling unit to comply with all of the city's requirements of the zoning code, one of which is the deed restriction. We would have to have that recorded and in hand prior to allowing the unit to go forward with a building permit. And after the certificate is issued, a building permit may be issued. So they need to be cleared through planning first, that they meet all the setback requirements, they're meeting coverage, height, all of those findings, that they have a parking space if it's needed or it is required. And if it meets all those findings and those requirements, then they would obtain a zoning clearance certificate and then could move forward to a building permit. On utilities and fees, the accessory dwelling unit that is contained within the existing space of a single-family residence or accessory structure is not considered a new residential unit, and no new or separate utility connection is required. All other accessory dwelling units may require a new or separate utility connection between the accessory dwelling unit and the utility. So it may require a new electrical panel, which would be determined by PG&E. We'd be able to determine that with the building plans and the building permit. All applicable public service and impact fees shall be paid prior to occupancy. So if a new connection is required in order to service that new accessory dwelling unit, then those fees would be applicable and would be paid prior to occupancy. And staff is anticipating minimal impact to city infrastructure associated with landscaping, 1 bathroom and 1 kitchen, as these units are no more than 2 bedrooms. So a junior accessory dwelling unit, it's not required under, as previously stated, under the new accessory dwelling unit law. It is optional. However, the city, if we do adopt an ordinance, gets credit for junior accessory dwelling units as a part of our housing element and our arena, our regional housing needs allocation. So the benefits from the city staff perspective was that at least the city would get credit. It has to be adopted by ordinance for it to be legal. A junior accessory dwelling units are no more than 500 square feet and are typically bedrooms in a single-family residential dwelling unit that have an entrance into the unit from the main home and an entrance to the outside from the junior accessory dwelling unit. And like previously stated, it must have cooking facilities, which include a sink. It's not required to have a private bathroom, and the ordinance requires a building permit in order for that unit to be legal. And that's how staff would be able to track it for our regional housing needs allocation for the housing element, so our RENA. And we'd have to be able to show proof to the state with that building permit. So public hearing notice was published on March 8th. And as of today's date, no written comments have been received. So with that, staff is recommending that the City Council waive the second reading and adopt ordinance number 1170 by title. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, before we go on, we vote, I want the public to know that this is not our idea. The city staff did not bring this forward. The city attorney did not bring this forward, and the council certainly did not bring this forward. This is all the state of California who passed a ruling and said you will now, they mandated that these junior accessory units, these auxiliary units or accessory units will be legal within your city. You do not have a choice as to whether you do this or not. We are, all five of us are concerned with the looks of our city. Now, the only thing that Director Elms did not mention, and I'm going to ask, and I already know the answer to this question, is, Chief, do we get any additional money for patrols, or because we're compacting more people possibly in a certain area? Does the state provide any funds for this? Thank you, Chief. That's what I thought the answer was. We do not get any police patrol funds. So with me, this is an unfunded mandate. And so if we did not pass, so why is this coming to the council? Why didn't the state just institute it? Well, they did. They did just institute it. If we did not, if staff didn't do the research and staff did not bring this ordinance to us, anyone with a rental unit, if a person owned 10 rental units, then they could build 10 of these shacks in back and house more people in our city. But now it has to be owner occupied because we're able to do that. Staff went through this ordinance and they put in every restriction that they could that didn't violate a state order. And thank you, staff, for doing that. But I want everyone to know we are concerned with the looks of our community. This is not our idea. And council, correct me if I'm wrong, please. This is not our idea. This is not our idea of beautification. It's not our idea of how people should live. It's not our idea of the conditions. And believe me, we're going to continue to research to see how we can further tighten what's going to be passed tonight, probably. So I needed to make that statement because the citizens need to know where this comes from. There's no additional money to help our city, but the state of California says you will do this. You will do this, and you will do this in every community in the state of California. So that's the end of my soapbox, and council, thank you for let me indulge in this. So with that, I'm going to open up the public hearing on ordinance number 1170. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Not seeing or hearing anyone, I will now close the public forum and bring it back to council level. Any discussion, council, or do I have a motion? Mrs. Santos.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to waive the second reading of ordinance number 1170.
Do I have a second? Mr. Freya.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Santos, second by Faria to waive the second reading of ordinance number 1170 as read by title. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? None carried. Mrs. Santos?
Thank you. I'd like to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just going to press these. Hang on. Santos, Faria. Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 1170 as read by title.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by Santos, second by Faria for the adoption of ordinance number 1170. And this is a roll call vote.
Faria,
Yes.
Johnson Santos,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Lewis, Belalta.
Yes. Okay. Let's go on to item B, public hearing. To receive public comment, consideration of approval of a taxi cab license number 2019-01 at a residence of 726 East B Street for Shahzad Ali, is that pronounced correctly? Okay. APN 025-015-017. B1, City Council Resolution Number 6070, approving taxi cab license 2019-01 for Shahzad Ali, DBA Easy Cab, and deeming the operation a public convenience and necessity. And we are going to go to Director Elms.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor and City Council. So this item is being brought forward because it's in accordance with our Las Vegas Municipal Code in regards to taxi cabs. Taxi cab licenses can only be granted until to any person after a hearing is conducted and has been held by the City Council. And the City Council has determined that the public convenience and necessity require the operation proposed by the applicant for such a license. This is a very old ordinance, and city staff is actually in the process of updating this particular taxi cab ordinance, not only to comply with state regulations, new state regulations, but also to require a more streamlined process. As you can imagine, times have changed since this ordinance was originally created. There's uses as Uber and Lyft out there, and we want to make a more streamlined and more user-friendly process, which will not require a business to come before the City Council to determine public convenience and necessity, as it's really just not necessary. It's business as usual, and typically can be done ministerially through staff with a business license. So, but for the purposes of being in accordance with our municipal code, Mr. Ali has applied for a taxi cab license to operate a public automobile service within the city of Las Vegas. He was first licensed as a taxi cab driver in 2013 and recently transferred his taxi cab license. Some may recall Ali's Taxi, that was Mr. Ali's taxi cab business. So he transferred it to another operator in anticipation of moving out of state, out of California. So his relocation plans have since been altered, and he will be staying in Las Vegas longer than he had anticipated. So he's requesting to reestablish a public automobile service in the city of Las Vegas. And Mr. Ali would like to operate his own taxi cab service locally until his relocation plans continue to progress. And he would be operating as Easy Cab. Currently, there are 6 total drivers within the city of Las Vegas and 4 companies. With Mr. Ali, it would make 7 at the population of about 42,000 people. Staff feels that there is not an over-concentration in taxi cab services in the city of Las Vegas. So with that, staff is asking that the City Council adopt resolution number 6070 approving taxi cab license 2019-01 for Mr. Shazad Ali, resident of Los Banos, doing business as Easy Cab and deeming the operation of public convenience and necessity. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions from council at this time? Mr. Jones?
So how does a private taxi cab company differ from Lyft and Uber when it comes to our regulations? It seems like Lyft and Uber, they can sneak in, sneak out, and we have no control over that, but we have, well, permits required for someone that's doing a private service.
So technically, Lyft and Uber need a business license. They're conducting business. Those drivers are conducting business in the city of Los Banos. They technically, by the black and white of our code, they are required to have a business license. Though Mr. Ali does have to have his particular, each taxi cab itself has to be inspected according to our ordinance by the police department. They're also inspected by Merced County Weights and Measures. And according to our ordinance, they're given a badge, they have a background check. And so our police department vets those taxi cab drivers. And this is to ensure safety of our residents. So Uber and Lyft, they should be following the same process as they are automobile services. But Mr. Ali wants to make sure that he's doing everything in accordance with our laws and is following the proper process.
Okay, it sounds like we should really be promoting any of our businesses that want, or local businesses that want to have a business license and do it in the proper way versus some of these other companies that may not want to follow our rules and get a business license. A couple more questions. Advertising on the vehicle, is there restrictions since it's going to be parked in front of their residence? Can you park on the property or on the driveway and on the street without violating any of our codes?
He can, it's a home occupation. He just can't advertise from the home with any street or yard signage from his home. But that's where he'd be dispatched from, would be his home. And our ordinance requires that he has to have identification on his vehicle.
Okay, so he can have a full advertising wrap on his vehicle. He can have an employee that takes the vehicle home and there is no code violation, correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there
We
a
allow
weight
that.
limit to as well as the vehicle? Like when we go into like a commercial class, 10,000 pounds?
Yes.
Is that restricted as far as weight class? Let's just say if it's a party bus taxi.
Yes, it wouldn't be allowed to be parked at the home.
Okay. All right, excellent, thank you.
So is everyone following the same, who operates a transportation service in Los Banos, are they all following the same rules?
Yes.
Even the Uber and Lyft, or do we have any Uber and Lyft?
We may have one person who floats every now and then, I believe, but I don't think Las Vegas has a big demand for it. I believe that our taxi cab services are established and the locals utilize them because they're reliable.
Okay, so if there is an Uber or Lyft person, and we have the information for a contact, I'd like to see them pass the same stringent requirements that everyone else does.
So we will be streamlining the process.
Okay.
And we're in the works of that. Actually, coming before you next month should be.
But they'll still
we're
have to have a police
anticipating-
check and everything and go through all that. That's
It
what
will-
I'm getting at.
Yes, it'll be a more
Yeah.
streamlined process, but yes, it wouldn't come before the city council, but it would require a business license.
Understood. Yes, go ahead.
Or another statement. It's actually really easy to find out who the active Uber and Lyft drivers are. Obviously, we do have some with the decals, but a lot of times they work in the Bay Area. But if you just get out your phone app, your Lyft or Uber, you can see which ones are out, and our police or code enforcement can go right behind them and cite them if they're active. So it's an easy fix if you wanted to target it.
GPS.
Yep,
Let's fix it.
that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Good point. Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, so we need a public hearing, right? Okay, so I'd like to open the public hearing on City Council Resolution number 6070 as read by title. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Not seeing or hearing anyone, I will bring it back to council level to close the public hearing. And comments by council or a motion? Mr. Freya.
If there are no comments, I'd like to make the motion to adopt City Council Resolution number 6070, approving taxi cab license 2019-01 for Shazad Ali Easy Cab and deeming the operation of public convenience and necessity.
Mr. Jones.
I'll second that.
Motion by Faria, second by Jones to approve City Council Resolution 6070 as read by title. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? None carried. Good luck. Okay, let's go on to item 8, cancellation of regular City Council meeting scheduled for Wednesday, May 1st, 2019 due to the May Day Fair. And I think this is kind of self-explanatory. Anyone want to make a motion? Okay, Mr. Freya. Oh, you're next?
No, my mic was still on.
Oh, okay. Let me go to Mr. Freya. Go ahead.
Well, after a long deliberation
yeah.
and discussion,
Yeah.
I'd like to move to cancel the regular City Council meeting for Wednesday, May 1st, due to the May Day Fair.
Do I have a second? Mrs. Santos.
Second?
Okay, motion by Freya, second by Santos to, for the cancellation of the May 1st, 2019 meeting due to the May Day Fair. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? None carried. Item 9, advisement of public notices, one report. Director Elms?
Yes, we have one public hearing item. This is revisions to conditions of approval for vesting tentative tract maps 2016-01 and 2016-02. This is for the Villas in the Hill subdivisions. They're located within the East Center area plan. And the proposed revision to the condition is actually as it relates to Center Avenue. There is a requirement that Center Avenue is to be widened prior to occupancy of the first dwelling unit within the Hill property and prior to occupancy of the first unit in the gated community. But due to working with various utilities, PG&E being one of them, and relocation of power poles, staff feels that a revision to the language of the condition would be satisfactory, and we'll be proposing that to the Planning Commission. It would require that the condition still be done so that Center Avenue would be widened, but would be widened halfway through the project when Center Avenue is actually impacted versus on the front end, while the developer is dealing with the logistics with those utility companies for relocation. So that public hearing will be held by the Planning Commission on Wednesday, April 10th at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Let's go, any questions on Stacy's report? Okay, let's go on to item 10, City Manager's report.
Nothing
Ross?
tonight, Mayor, just to thank you to the scouts and adult leaders for being here tonight. I fully expect all of you to be up here sitting in one of these chairs these days or someday in the future, or at the staff table. So good luck, and thanks for spending your night with us.
Okay, let's go on to item 11, City Council member reports. Tonight, we'll start with Mr. Freya.
Thank you, Mayor. Lots going on in the school district. The music department had their all-district band festival, choir. Los Banos High School went down to San Luis Obispo, festival there. All kinds of things going on. All kinds of different award ceremonies are going to be going on in the next month or two. And you can go to the school district websites and see honoring all these wonderful activities that these children, these accomplishments. Scouts, thank you for coming tonight. It was a pleasure to talk with you before the meeting. I hope I was able to answer your questions. You have my emails, and anything further you need, just contact me. Always a pleasure. And yes, looking forward to seeing you sitting up here someday. Fair is coming soon. Also, we have our Los Banos High School Choir Spring Concert. There will be one more council meeting in between there, but I'll get a plug in here. It's April 24th, Wednesday night. And we're going to be doing our usual classical type stuff. We're going to be finishing off the evening with a few tunes by Queen, since Bohemian Rhapsody movie is in the theaters and is out there and so famous this year. And students have gotten interested in some very, gotten interested in the music of Queen now, and so we're going to be doing some of that. So, have a wonderful spring, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Did you say Queen?
Queen.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Bohemian Rhapsody is one of the
Yeah,
great, yeah, that's a great choral piece for the kids.
Fantastic.
And,
Glad to hear that.
yeah.
Hey, Mrs. Santos.
Nothing to report tonight, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go on to Mr. Jones.
Yes, I just want to thank staff for putting together the marketing flyer or recruitment flyer for officers. So we're in desperate need for it, and I'm glad to see our Measure H dollars being put to work now. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Lewis.
Yes, the only report I have this evening, Mr. Mayor, is I had the opportunity to attend the CCID Irrigation District members meeting. And it's a very complicated thing, trying to deal with state and federal water, but they're doing an excellent job at what they do. One of the things that I did garner from this is that they were able to negotiate federal water versus state water, and as a result, they're going to be having more water this year than they have in the past, so that's a good thing for our farmers. Also, Los Banos Creek in the past had only been used as an evaporative pond of water, but now CCID is going to be using it for retention and for release. And, the good thing for the city of Los Banos is that due to the amount of water that they have and are going to be receiving, is that they're working on a ground recharging of water for the city of Los Banos. So that's a great thing for us. So I was really happy to attend this particular event. They have it every year and disseminate a lot of information. There's still negotiations going on. There's still a 10-year program they have to meet with the state. So we're not the only one that have restrictions and nooses around our neck. They do as well. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Well, I don't have anything to report other than I'd like to invite Chris White to come and give that present. I wasn't able to hear that, and I really want to hear the presentation. Go ahead, Mrs. Lewis.
I think he would be happy to do so.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So do we have to agendize that, or can I just? Yeah. Oh, the attorney didn't say anything. Everybody be quiet. Okay.
We're good.
Okay, we're good. Okay, so it's all scheduled. Counsel, you okay?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Yeah, because I heard the report was excellent, and just want to find out more about the recharge in Los Banos, because this was a good rain year, and it'll kind of give us kind of a barometer of what we can expect. So then we can have Mark chime in too. And we're not going to one-day watering, are we? Pardon me? Nothing. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
We're not thinking about 2 days.
He obviously doesn't have to run for office.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, all right, I'm not going to take it any further. All right, let's move it along, yeah. Yeah, after that comment, you're right. Okay, so with that, I would like to go to item 12 and adjournment to 8:30 a.m. Thursday, April 4th, 2019, at College Greens Building located at 815 Scripps Drive, Los Banos, California, to conduct a city council goals and objectives workshop. Do I need a motion? Is that a motion item? Action motion? It's an action?
I don't think, yes, actually you do.
Oh, okay, let's go with that then, so we're in proper form here. All right, Mr. Freya.
Thank you, Mayor. I will move to adjourn to 8:30 a.m. Thursday, April 4th, to the College Greens Building as listed by title.
Okay, Mr. Santos.
Second.
Motion by Freya, second by Santos, for the adjournment to April 4th, all at 8:30 a.m. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? None carried.
Made it.
Any other comments? Okay, meeting adjourned at 7:59. Okay.
Just under an hour.